Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we're talking guys with whistles, guys with visors, guys who love LA, and guys whose seats are on fire.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. And Chris, kicking off today's episode with a conversation I didn't anticipate having about an old friend of ours, that is former Red Raider QB and former Texas Tech head coach Cliff Kingsbury, who is in the news this week as he has found his next football destination, and it actually will be working for another former friend of ours in Texas Tech's very own Lincoln Riley. USC is the scene. This dude must love LA. Chris, I know that we felt like, hey, he's got a lot of options here as far as the next stop is concerned, but I don't know about you. I didn't exactly see a college destination, maybe in Cliff's immediate future, but here we are. He's going to be back in Los Angeles.
I think this is like a fun headline to me, because I never put that together. Because Cliff, obviously, he departed here and it didn't necessarily work out. Then he gets an opportunity in Arizona and has them playing some good football at different times, but ultimately it just that's a hard thing to sustain, especially if there's QB issues and relationship issues and contractual issues, all the things that are going on with the Arizona Cardinals. And so, at both last stops, he's really it walks away with a ton of money at each spot, because I think even before last year at Arizona, he'd gotten basically a brand new contract extension. And I say all that to mention that he basically could have sat out and done nothing, or could have really picked and choosed on whatever he wanted to do. And I think it's pretty fascinating to me that he ends up in LA working for and with a guy that we know well in Lincoln, who, cut his teeth at East Carolina and Oklahoma, and obviously before that here at Texas Tech under Mike Leach from Muleshoe, Texas. But I think it's kind of a win-win for those two guys if you think about it. I mean, it really is. It's a win-win scenario for USC and USC or Trojan football, I should say. A couple of Red Raiders.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting because I was thinking National Football League again or bust. I just got some feel. And it's probably my own bias against what I perceive as a college job and what it requires. But I just got some feel with Coach Kingsbury that, maybe the professional ranks where you can more so just keep the mind on football and not marketing, sales, and all that comes with recruiting. I kind of thought maybe that was where he more so fit into the mold, so to speak. And I really even hate to say that because I don't know that there is a mold that he fits into as a football mind, an OC or a QB whisperer or whatever you want to call him. Did you get something similar? When you say you're surprised, is it more like the spot within college football, or is it just college football in general as opposed to being back in the NFL?
Probably neither. It just, I think what surprised me was like, he's going to go work with Lincoln. They've coached against each other. They have kind of been, different eras of the Mike Leach, deal and all that. And I just that part I thought was just kind of like, whoa. It just kind of hit me. And what's fascinating is this Cliff almost joined the USC staff prior to taking the Arizona Cardinals job. And in fact, I guess he had
like 35 days, right?
Yeah, he had as the offensive coordinator. That's right. So, but I think if you're Lincoln, and I know we're talking a lot of USC football and all that stuff, but I think it's just kind of fascinating because you've got somebody who can now focus on some of the other things, doesn't have to worry about his quarterbacks, doesn't have to worry about if they're going to be coached well. I think that Lincoln can also learn a lot from Cliff too, schematically. They can teach each other, probably learn from each other. And so, and he's not, I think, sometimes when you're the head coach and you bring somebody like that in that is very high profile, you're a little insecure about, man, does he want my job? Is he going to take my job? I don't think you have any concerns there, because I would guess that at some level, Cliff wants no part of that job. And that's why it's so easy to hire a guy like that that you've known and you can trust. And it's obviously, and think about it from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, look, I unearthed Patrick Mahomes. I coached Kyler Murray. He's got some nice feathers in his cap from a QB standpoint, and then obviously he was a really good player and all those things too. So I would say that if you're Lincoln Riley, that you're winning there.
Yeah, I think what you bring up about the hire and sort of the hierarchy that could come with this is really intriguing to me, because Cliff Kingsbury is now a football presence if he wasn't before. But, there are skins on the wall, I think, from a recruiting perspective. When you're talking about time spent in the National Football League, there's a whole lot to point to, not to mention the specific athletes that he's been involved with. And I don't really think, we're talking about the freaking Arizona Cardinals, for crying out loud. It's no great sin for a head coach to not be able to establish a winner with the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't think there's like some tremendous, shine that's been taken off of how you view Cliff Kingsbury in certain football circles, Chris. So that part is interesting, because, there's always that kind of over your shoulder, like, who's coming after me in this cutthroat business, or who is my boss looking at and saying, I don't know, I'm pretty excited maybe about this Tadlock guy over here that we brought onto the staff once upon, you just never know. So I'm surprised by how this could all, I guess, fit together in a certain way. And man, thinking back to when Cliff Kingsbury was in Lubbock and the way I used to just kind of, speculate in my own mind about what his football future could hold. I honestly thought when he leaves Texas Tech, whatever it looks like, for better or worse, and I didn't think he would leave as an unsuccessful Tech coach and wind up in the NFL, even though that's what happened. I did have a lot of thoughts about, or maybe just hopes about, him being successful at Tech and then winding up in the National Football League. But I didn't anticipate it looking like this. So I guess there is some connection to that college game, maybe for Coach Kingsbury, that runs a little bit deeper than I anticipated, at least from a coaching perspective. And again, I'd probably emphasize this to a great degree, Chris. He loves LA. That's really what I got to think is playing into this in large part also. I don't know if he didn't want to go be a Los Angeles Ram or a Los Angeles Charger or whatever. But, this is going to be really interesting to see it play out. And I just wonder if there is someday another college head coaching opportunity. Is Cliff Kingsbury ever going to be a guy that entertains that kind of thing? Because I was a little bit surprised to just hear you say maybe a moment ago that part of why you can be secure if you're Lincoln Riley or confident in adding this to your staff, this kind of piece to your staff, which is a large presence, could be the thought that he wouldn't want that head coach's job anymore. That would be a little surprising, just given human nature, I think. But Cliff Kingsbury is a pretty unique character, I guess, himself, right?
Yeah, and I'm serious. I don't think he. Again, I could be wrong. Plans change. But I don't think he would want to deal with all that comes with it. He had a hard enough, struggle just here, and like this is his alma mater and all those things of just kind of doing all the things that come with being a head coach. And then really it's changed a bunch since then with the portal and with NIL and all those things. But he's a brilliant offensive coach. I think he's, and that's why, I would envision a scenario to where he could really stay there and do that as long as he wanted to. Lincoln's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Lincoln's one of the top coaches in the country, especially offensively. I think he fits USC, and obviously USC going to the Big Ten here pretty soon. But I think you could, and again, there's something to be said about freedom in life, and being able to kind of pick and choose what you want to do, because money is not of a concern. And I think that's where Cliff is, man. And these days, he's done really well outside of football. He's done well in football from the standpoint of he's been paid very well, and obviously he's gotten let go from Texas Tech and from Arizona, but he's done so. I wish I could get let go in the way that he was with as much money as he's walked away with, because at that point it just gives you it gives you a ton of freedom to be able to kind of do what you want, and you don't have to do anything if that's not what you want to do. But these guys they're football guys, man. They like being around the routine and the grind and being a part of something and all that. And time off is great, but I just think that it's your core. It's fun to coach and be around and learn and progress and all these different things, and you get to do it in Los Angeles. So anyway, but
yeah, and I saw photos of what he was doing in Timbuktu or wherever he went for a while. So I'm surprised he wants to be doing anything back stateside. But the guy's a worker, I guess. What can we say? All right, well, that's going to make LA football a little bit more interesting for probably a few West Texans or Red Raiders here or there, and certainly wishing him success. And I don't know, Chris, all that came with his alma mater and being the head coach may not exactly be the same as what would come with being the head coach in a totally different spot. A man is a prophet, but in his hometown. And really, there are some probably freeing things that come with not, having that history, that emotional tie-in, and all that makes it so personal when it is a spot that you spent years, obviously, as a student athlete and playing quarterback here in West Texas. Let's stick with the guys with the whistles. Coming up next, we'll talk about our guy right here in Lubbock, Joey McGuire. I mentioned skins on the wall a moment ago. What did the skins on the wall for Joey McGuire actually look like after year one? We know what the record was, but where did he really establish some credibility as a college head coach? I want to get to some of that specifically, and also what we like, right? Off-season lists. Where is Joey McGuire in the new expanded Big 12? Coaches from top to bottom. We had a list thrown out this week I want to get to, and we'll have some thoughts of where we think Coach McGuire fits in next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NBA postseason on your mind? Now's the perfect time to get in as a new customer with FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app today, and you're going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet don't bank. You feel me? Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, it's super easy to use. And then you can bet on anything and everything. Money line, point scores, how many fans LeBron gets kicked out in the first quarter, whatever you want, they got it. Plus, FanDuel is even going to let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout. Smoking on that same game parlay pack, my man, only with FanDuel. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets today when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network with Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Glad to have you with us as we're coming to you from west of the 100th Meridian, where it's really going down. Another beautiful day in the great state. Thanks for making us a part of yours. Subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode if you haven't so far. Don't mind you taking that test drive, but I want you to come on in and hop in for the long haul. Join the fam family and take your place in the galaxy of stars known as Locked On Texas Tech YouTube subscribers. Putting that on a t-shirt, I think, pretty soon. Chris, I'm a sucker for off-season lists. Unintentional Rhyme Master with us today. And I saw this one I had to comment on because not only is it an off-season list, but it's one I was a little taken aback by where Joey McGuire was appearing within. This is from On3 Sports. 3, 2, 1, go. So take it for whatever you want to, but I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, they've got our guy Joey McGuire at number 9 of 14 as they're ranking the present, soon to be on the field, expanded but not yet contracted Big 12 that includes 14 teams. Also putting that on a t-shirt, I think, and selling it there at conference headquarters. So Joey McGuire, number 9. Let me give you the rundown here really quickly before we dive into it. Chris Kleiman, number 1 at K-State. Sonny Dykes, number 2 at Texas Christian. Lance Leipold, number 3 of the Kansas Jayhawks. Mike Gundy, 4. Gus Malzahn of Central Florida. Get familiar with that name again. Is at number 5. Kalani Sitake, which sounds delicious, but is also a BYU head coach. Don't even know if I'm saying it right. My first stab at it. He's at number 6. Matt Campbell is at number 7, leaning on some prior laurels of Iowa State. Aranda ahead of McGuire right there, 8 and 9. And then 10 through 14, you got Sarkisian, Venables, a little high for my taste. Holgerson is at 12. Scott Satterfield of Cincinnati, 13. Our old buddy Neil Brown, they've got at the bottom of the list at number 14. Let's hone in on McGuire first, Chris, because obviously we know what the record was. It was something that we could be pretty excited about. But we know about the finish, the bowl opponent, and that victory, and then beating opponents your fans care about. So all of these things are kind of out there in the big picture of what made Joey McGuire's first season at Texas Tech successful. But I wonder, you can touch on some of those things if you want to, but even beyond that, where do you think really Coach McGuire maybe earned some things as far as like, all right, here's a little college cred now as a head coach here on the resume? Was it, getting a little more out of a team that maybe wasn't expected to do what they did? Was it managing adversity? Was it just the energy, keeping that up? I mean, where do you think, from your perspective, you really saw Coach McGuire kind of now for the first time as a head coach on this level assert himself and really make somebody feel the Joey McGuire effect?
Yeah, and the beauty of a list is it is intended to create conversation, and here we are talking about this list because everybody's going to have like agree, disagree, agree with the disagreement, on and on it goes. My guy's not high enough. My guy's too low. What is going on? Well, how could you be so crazy as to have this guy at number 2? I think Joey earned a lot of I don't know where I would have placed him on this list. I think part of it is like, what are the parameters of a list like this? Like, is this career achievement? Is this popularity contest? Is this based off of last season, which is kind of what this list looks like to me, that it's really a snapshot of just last year. And that's why, I think Aranda's a bit lower and Sonny Dykes is a bit higher. Neil Brown's really low. Dana Holgerson's really low. I mean, that's why I'd look at this as maybe just like a glance at last year alone. But I think Joey earned a lot of street cred, if you will, by, look, 3 different quarterbacks. You end up 4-5 after 9 games, and then you end up, winning. Winning some of those down the stretch, and you win a bowl game, and I just think you finish strong. And I don't know. I just think that his arrow, like you could look at this list and like put an arrow next to each guy's name on where they're trending. Joey's there's an arrow pointing up for Joey McGuire. That's for sure. I think with some of these guys that you're either holding steady, some of them will be pointing down. But I think Joey's arrow is pointing up, and if they have the kind of season that we would expect this year, he'll be much higher on a list like this or in a conversation like this a year from now.
Yeah, it'd definitely be something where you were wanting to buy stock in number 9, I think, right now, or at least as a Tech fan.
Yeah.
I feel like I would be. I don't know. I know a lot of people are maybe looking, non-Tech fans are looking from afar and thinking, what in the world are they so excited about? You're 7-5 in the regular season, 8-5 overall, but you don't know. You don't know what we've been through. Chris, I really think, as you're kind of describing there, where did Joey McGuire rise above? If there are skins on the wall to point to, what do they actually read? Because they don't read Big 12 title. They don't read, some
Right.
things that you might think when you think of, all right, what do skins on the wall actually look like? But to me, it does kind of go back to what you were just saying right there. Not only multiple quarterbacks, but I think going back to the realm of just some bad luck from an injury standpoint. But your team continues to compete, succeed, and seemingly get better as the year goes on, which really speaks in large part. And I need to say, we're including, obviously, when we say Joey McGuire, staff impact, Joey McGuire staff impact. But I think there's some indication there, Chris, that yeah, this team isn't just banking on like this one really great player, to give them any chance here or there. It was all about next man up. They all preach it, but do their teams actually practice it? No, not all of them. But the one that was under Joey McGuire in year 1 in Lubbock absolutely did, because not only with the quarterback position, but You're thinking about the offensive line. You're even thinking on the defensive side of the football, Chris, at the most important point in the year, arguably, Tyree Wilson is lost. And then somehow it's almost like you continue to excel as a defense and get better and better and better. There's always been a great envy for me as a Tech fan watching other programs across the conference or elsewhere get better as the season goes along, because nothing stays the same week to week. You're getting better, you're getting worse. And I think for a simple-minded guy like me, one of the easy tells for what I view to be a well-coached football program or football team is a team that is improving throughout the year. And man, I don't know how long it's been since I thought, into October, into November, you were a better team than you were in September. That hasn't been some common feeling, but I had that feeling a season ago. And I think it comes back to those three words. It's as popular of a cliche to sell as a coach as there is: next man up. But it's also as valuable of a trait or an identity trait, I think, for any team to have. And we saw that last year, quarterback most visibly, but that wasn't the only spot that we saw the next man up being ready when his name was called and contributing, right?
Yeah, and I think because what you're talking about, who really is the culture part and the vibe he creates, the energy that he creates, the mood that surrounds. I mean, the whole program is kind of relevant all of a sudden, and I think so much of that is about what Joey has preached and what his kids have bought into. And you're right, it's positivity, it's next man up, and then ultimately getting results. I mean, you could have had a lot of these same talks and all that, but if you don't get the results, then it doesn't carry as much weight or water or whatever. But because you got results and you dealt with some adversity and all those things, I just think that people have kind of bought in, and I think Joey's made a lot of positive headline, positive noise, and made the program relevant all of a sudden. It's something that people are talking about. You mentioned Tyree Wilson too. I mean, he has a lot to do with kind of the emergence here in this first year, just because of his rise to stardom, if you will, him likely being a top 10 pick here in a few weeks. I think that, but it just can't be understated that or overstated that the three quarterback issues and the fact that you still had results, the fact that you still ended positively, and that you ended up winning your bowl game and all that while dealing with, again, some semi-different offense 3 different times based on what you had under center and what you were trying to enhance with them under center and who was available. You had some injuries at wide receiver and on it goes, offensive line, and so anyway, but I think that Joey's earned a lot of deserved credit. I don't know if he's as high as he should be on this list. I mean, they maybe should be a little bit higher, but again, this is a snapshot of kind of, I think, maybe some career achievement, maybe some what you did last year, and I get it. You were 8-5. You didn't win anything substantial. You did beat Texas and Oklahoma, and you did win your bowl game. So you've got a Texas Bowl trophy to show for it. But the real question would be is if you look at a list like this and then you try to project what it looks like a year from now, that would be a fun exercise. Like, kind of try to project, okay, what does this thing look like a year from now? Who's going to win the Big 12? Who's going to take their team to the national title game or to a New Year's Day type bowl game? Who's going to fail miserably? Who's going to get fired? I mean, I don't know, but that would be a fun exercise to kind of look at it ahead and try to project on if those arrows that are next to these guys pointing up or down or holding steady, project what it looks like a year from now. I don't know. It'd be difficult to do, but I'd be willing to bet you though that Joey ends up much higher on a list like this a year from now.
Yeah, kind of hard to project what you think about some of the newcomers, especially, but obviously Gus Malzahn, a proven name in college football. Chris Kleiman at the top of the list.
Yeah,
okay. I think a lot of people would be willing to accept it, but interesting.
And Big 12 championship, I think he's somebody that squeezes about, and they're just really good. It's kind of boring style of football, but they just win, man. And it's
I like what you're about to say too, and I want to apply that to McGuire. Squeezing every drop out of what he's got or something along, like you're getting everything out of every guy you've got on the roster. And that is another telltale sign of a really impactful coach.
Which is probably why a guy like Lance Leipold, who hasn't done a lot yet, he's probably higher on this list than I think most people would think. Because, I mean, they were – where did they start out? 6-0 and then finished up, 6-7, I think, on the year. And yet he's – third on this list? And I think, though, that people, if you've been around Kansas football and known the scholarship limitations they've dealt with and just how bad it's been to get college game day there, to get sellout crowds going. I mean, because I've been in that stadium where I think we counted right around kickoff, we counted like 500 people. Harris and Jensen and I one time were like, okay, it was one of those 11 a.m. deals. Kansas was terrible. Tech wasn't a ton better, but you were favored to win by 17, 18 points, whatever it was. And I think 30 minutes before kickoff, we're like, boys, I wonder if they listed the kickoff time wrong somewhere around the campus because, and so it got to be right around kickoff. And we started, hey, you take these 6 sections, I'll take these 6. Let's count how many people are in here. And it was not a whole lot, man. But he's kind of
impressed that y'all made it all the way up that high. I mean, especially for radio guys.
Absolutely.
I'm about a 1, 2, 10, 500. Yeah.
They told me there'd be no math. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, before we get out of here, hot seat ranking. This is always the more interesting one to me as far as like who is hanging by a thread. And I just want to keep it with guys that we're a little bit more familiar with right now, Chris. Dana Holgorsen and Neil Brown. Holgorsen almost seems like he's been doing a Gundy Oklahoma State impression aside from the success on the field, but we're like every offseason it's like acrimony, and then we just kind of stay together continuously. For some reason, I feel like Holgorsen's potential hot seat is much different than Neil Brown's, who I would say is the hottest of them all. Heading into this upcoming season, I don't know, maybe the pressure is actually greater when you join the Big 12 and now you're on a bigger platform if you're Houston. But I was about to say maybe there's like some little grace period as you join the Big 12 and are on a bigger platform, bigger challenges. I don't know. How do you see the hot seat aspect with those two or anybody else in the league heading into 2023?
Yeah, I think Dana has been very outspoken. He's mentioned some facility stuff. I think he's kind of almost said, "Man, you see my buyout. I'm not on any kind of hot seat. That's laughable." I don't know what his relationship is with the administration and all that. He's outspoken. I think he's very transparent at times and blunt, if you will. And I think it kind of some people love it. Some people are kind of turned off by it, if you will. I think he's been very outspoken though about the facility aspect away from their stadium, like the day-to-day stuff that needs to really, improve dramatically to catch up with the rest of the Big 12 from a recruiting standpoint and all those things. I don't know if he's on the hot seat per se, but I think that's probably worth monitoring. I think that he's had some success. They knew what they were getting when they brought him back. But this is going to be tougher, and I mean, you watched their sideline last year and you got guys taking swings at each other, and Houston's a hard place to coach at. Art Briles has done a good job with it. Sumlin did a good job with it. Sonny's done a good job with it. It's a place where you can win, but you get a lot of, the Houston kids that aren't away from maybe people they need to be away from. And sometimes it's hard, I guess what I'm saying. It's hard to keep them from being distracted and all that stuff. So I'll just be interested to see kind of what the trajectory there is. But, they've won. And I'll be honest, so much of what Dana's season this next year is going to be about is somebody like Donovan Smith. I mean, like how well does Donovan Smith acclimate, and is he in fact the starter? And so we'll see. And with Neil, I think Neil is legitimately on the hot seat. I think I will say this: there's a new athletic director there, so that creates a different dynamic. But whoever did the scheduling for Neil Brown in the non-conference, you've just set him up to fail. I mean, they play for West Virginia anyway, but they play one of the tougher non-conference schedules every year. There is no gimme or guarantee game. They're playing, some of these are like regional rivalry type stuff, which are really spicy. Yep. And that doesn't even like your Virginia Techs, your Pitts, stuff like that in the non-conference. I'm talking multiple of these games. It would be like Texas Tech playing, TCU and New Mexico every non-conference, and then you had the Big 12 schedule to go before TCU actually joined it. When those two schools want every bit of what you've got and have it circled and all that. Anyway, I just don't know if he's been given a fair shake from a scheduling standpoint, but there's no doubt he's got to win. And, that's why Graham Harrell, I think, kind of got out of there and went to Purdue. I think, you can kind of follow the tea leaves a little bit on kind of coaches and the way staffs are put together for fear of, okay, man, they're about to get me here, So I think Neil's a really good guy. Yeah, I mean, bottom line, Neil's an awesome dude, man. And I think people genuinely up there like him. They just haven't won enough games, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. But Ren Baker, the new AD, will likely have and to localize it again, like Donovan Smith with Houston. You're in Morgantown. I think it's in late September. And I think that's going to be extremely interesting timing for you to be up there when the Red Raiders are up in Morgantown, because they will have played a really tough non-conference schedule. They could be semi-buried by that point and desperately needing a win. They could be riding high right now, and they could be one of the stories of the Big 12 if they've won 2 or 3 of those games, depending on how they did it. And you could be, the timing is just going to be tricky for Texas Tech, I guess is my point, because either they could be desperate, they could be really, riding some momentum. Not sure what you're going to get. I do like it, though, that it's in late September and not later than that, because the weather will certainly cooperate. But
yeah, that's always an interesting trip, pretty much regardless. But looking forward to figuring out maybe whether it will be Neil or someone else who's getting the old, hey, last one left, turn out the lights kind of treatment as the rats flee from a sinking ship in some regards. Chris, man, enjoyed the perspectives of the time as always, dude. We'll do it again on the other side. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. See you then, Chris.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive, people. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
You got it. Thanks for joining us, making us a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're doing it. For Chris Level, I'm KC Cowan. We'll see you next time on Locked On Texas Tech.